got some things that I would like to talk about as far as what are some things we can do to make race relations better. And we've got a couple of recommendations here. First of all, I would challenge each one of us to write down our story. As I read about the history of Fredericksburg, I was really quite intrigued by the history of race relations in this area. Read about the original contact between Native Americans and whites in this area, and then also I understand you have a book that was written about the history of African Americans in this area as well. I forget the name of it, but I'm very intrigued that you are talking about race, and I think there was a commission or a meeting in 2014 at Shiloh Baptist Church and talked about race relations and how you need to improve them in Fredericksburg. But we each need to understand how racism has impacted us personally. And one of the things that I encourage people to do is write your story down. Write it down, take a couple of weeks, and just put pen to paper and tell your own story. And then put it down for a little while, and then come back and revisit it after a week or two, and read it and ask some questions. What's not on this paper? Who's not included in this story? Oftentimes, when we explore our own story, especially in specific localities, there are a lot of stories that have not been told us. And so then I encourage you as a further step to read newspapers, accounts of articles, especially pertaining to racial issues. When I grew up in Vance County, back in around the 70s, there occurred a race riot in Oxford, North Carolina. Oxford is about 15 miles from Vance County. Never heard a word about it, but Tim Tyson, a friend of mine, who wrote the book Blood Don't Sign My Name, he documented what happened and went back and actually interviewed the family of the veteran. African-American veteran was killed by a white store owner, and they had a trial, but he was found to be innocent. And Tim went and interviewed the shooter, and he basically confessed that, yeah, this is what happened because Tim was a friend of his son, and so he opened up in this book. This book documents that story. But when I grew up, it was never talked about. And what made it so interesting was that in retaliation for his being released, black veterans basically almost burned down Oxford. They had a guerrilla campaign where in warehouses, a lot of downtown was burned down. So this is a well-kept secret in Oxford, North Carolina, about how we have this combustible situation that occurred, but no one wants to confront issues of race, want to talk about issues of class, want to talk about what's going on in our midst. We just kind of bury these secrets. And there are secrets in our families that have been buried. I still remember doing an interview with my great aunt and grandmother when I was in college in our genealogy, and they basically wouldn't talk because there were so many secrets that they didn't want to confide about. But we need to know our story, the good and the bad. So we need to understand how racism has impacted us. And this is not just for whites. Blacks have been deeply impacted by racism. There's a devaluation of black life. You look at many of the murders which occur in inner city neighborhoods, it's black on black murder, wherein young black men don't value the lives of other young black men. And so racism has impacted us to a degree where there is a heightening of the worth of some lives and the lessening of the worth of others. I also want to talk about ways in which, just one of the words that's been thrown around are racial microaggressions. How do we interact with people who are different from us? And what are the things that we say that might be a little insensitive? It is amazing. Now, whenever I meet a new white person, sooner or later it's going to come into the conversation, well, I have a black friend. So they're going to point out the race of someone they know who is black. And I'm trying to add, how does that add in your description of her? And she, the person, I had this happen to me just last week. I was walking with one of my colleagues, and she said, yeah, one of my friends who is black. And that can be offensive. What does that matter? If she's your friend, and then I'm black and she's black, so we have some sort. Now, I don't know who she is. But the things that we do and say each day, especially with the immigrant community, were you born here? How long have you been in the country? And there are assumptions that we make when we meet people that don't necessarily ring true. So there are times when we need to understand that the things that we say and the things that we do communicate messages. And it's amazing, those who study posture and how we relate to one another. CNN has done quite a bit of this, especially during the last election, where they would say, well, look at the press, especially when President Obama and President Trump met for the first time. We were sitting down, and she went on and she talked about how, well, you know, this is a power move. This is a move of basically not a lot of interaction with one another, but we are able to communicate things to people through the small things that we say. So we need to be aware of micro aggressions and also the code words that are out there that have racial impact or intent. There's a book that was written which studied code words, and Henry A. wrote in 1990 wrote, and I quote him, "As race became paramount in shaping U.S. politics and everyday life from the 1980s on, racial discourse emerged in the United States. The new racism was coded in the language of, and I quote these, welfare reform, neighborhood schools, toughness on crime, and illegitimate births, cleverly designed to mobilize white fears while relieving whites of any semblance of social responsibility and commitment. The new racism served to rewrite the politics of whiteness as a besieged racial identity," end quote. And what he's saying is that even though I don't think that everyone who wants a neighborhood school or talks about being tough on crime has conscious racial intent, we got to understand that the impact of these decisions impact people of different color. Geographically, when you look at neighborhood schools, there are very few regions in the country that would be totally segregated. But we're not talking about schools in neighborhoods, we're talking about selective schools in particular, and schools where individuals can choose the race of the children. Studies say that basically not overwhelming, about 60% of whites who were in a study that one of the top 3 issues that they wanted in school choice was for their children to be in schools with majority white populations. And that is a real factor. We see white flight. I was in Durham, North Carolina for over 20 years, and all of the elementary schools, with the exception of about 2, and about 8 schools, were majority black and Hispanic, wherein all the white parents had pulled their children out of the elementary schools. By the time they get to high school, some of them were coming back. I think it's some of the children's demand that they wanted to go to public schools. This whole contest between charter schools and private schools and public schools has in many communities racial dimensions, wherein they want to separate the races and don't want their children to go to school with children of different races. And I would also challenge all of us to open up in our community some of those old racial wounds that have not healed in order that healing may occur. We've got to talk about these things. We've got to talk about it. And again, the concern is that it's going to get contentious. You know, how much more time do I need to talk? Because I'm on a roll right now.
Can we go to
10:45. Oh, okay. You know, a lot of these old racial wounds are not healed. They have not healed. And we need to talk about things that have happened in order that our children may know. Children are amazingly resilient. It is amazing. And we know that all children grow up basically not prejudiced. They learn prejudice, and they learn it at home by the things that we do and the things that we don't do. And my child, Caleb, that I mentioned in the early morning service, who is very resistant to moving from North Carolina to Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, she's will be in the 8th grade next year. She has proposed that we could leave her behind, and she will finish up her 8th grade. And I asked her, I said, "Sister, where are you going to live if we leave you behind?" Because we're selling the house, but she's got a plan, but pray for her. When she went to preschool, most of her friends were white. And I just noticed that whenever they would have sleepovers, Kayla oftentimes would be the only black child. And when she would have a sleepover, she would have an integrated group. But as she's gotten older, even though race has not been a factor in the family, we don't talk about race, we don't describe people as white or black. But notice that she's starting to talk more about race. She went to see the movie Get Out, which is described as a horror movie that deals with the issue of race. Now, we didn't let her go see this movie. She and her friends went. But she came back and she says, "Well, you know, it just makes me not trust white people." I said, no, we're not going there. I said, and she said, "No, I'm not meaning it to that group, but that's what you said." And so there are lessons that we learn to counter our humanity. I think that we naturally relate well to one another. We get along, but then the society starts saying, well, this group is a good group, this group is again, a positive group, and this group is a negative group. So we've got to unlearn those lessons. One of the ways to begin is to open up some of these old racial wounds. We've got to challenge our churches, and I'm really empowered by what you're doing here to make racial reconciliation one of its long-term priorities. Not a short-term, but a long-term priority. The church has got to lead the way. You look at the institutions in our communities, and there are a lot of wonderful institutions. I love sports. I've been watching the NCAA tournament, but they can't teach what the church teaches. We teach values in a way that no other institution does. And even though you talk about through sports, you learn teamwork, but you really don't learn value. And you don't learn to understand that we're called to have a sense of connection with other people, even though they might not be of our tribe or of our group. And so we've got to have the church to lead this way. And one of the things that I'm going to do, the sermon that I'm going to preach at 11 is going to be the sermon that I'm going to preach all across this country, that we were called into being for such a time as this. That when there's division in the country, when there's division, there's brokenness in human lives, the purpose of the church is to bind up those wounds, to take chances, to be on the cutting edge of teaching love and grace. And when you look at every social justice movement in this country, the church was at the forefront. There would not have been an abolitionist movement had it not been for the Christian church. Escaped slaves would go from church to church, making their way to freedom. And we look at the civil rights movement in this country. That is one of the most church-led movements we've ever seen. All the meetings were held in churches. The leadership were clergy. It was an interfaith movement. The Jewish community definitely was present. But the church, and you look at the Moral Monday movement in North Carolina, when you see Reverend Barber up on stage talking about justice issues in the state of North Carolina, 90% of the individuals standing around him are clergy. So the Christian church has a prophetic voice that we are in danger of losing. And the Christian church is at a point where the goal of the church is obviously to proclaim the good news of the gospel. But then the question must become, what is the good news? And we're going to read from Luke 4, where Jesus says, I've come to proclaim good news to the poor. And so we have an element in our ministry in the church wherein we focus on the institution of the church, but our real focus is on the world. We are to get the good news here and take it out into the world to change the world. And the model of discipleship that Jesus had, he trained his 12 disciples. Go on out there, change the world. And in fact, he sent them out in most of the Gospels in two groups, first the 12, and then in Luke, we know he sent 70 2 by 2.